Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent ISD, and I'm very happy to have Dana Hebreard with us today. She is the Assistant Director of Experiential Learning at a local university. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Dana, here at our Career Chats, we love to take people back to high school. You know, when you were 16 or 17, did you think you'd grow up to be working in I mess up with that, experiential learning?
Yeah, or did you even know what that was, right?
Didn't even
So,
know what that was, I bet.
no, honestly, when you are sitting there in high school, 16, 17-year-old, you think maybe working in higher education meant a professor who wore tweed jackets and quoted Shakespeare or something, empirical like that. And you had no idea that there's an entire team of people who help students learning by doing. And that career, we were just talking a little bit earlier about career preparedness and internships or research or service learning, career exploration, really student activities, which is kind of how I got started. All that good stuff, all that stuff that creates the sparkly resume. So teenage me, working at Brookstone, working at Giardello's Pizza in Chicago, if you had told me one day I'd be have a doctorate and work in a university helping students launch their careers, I would have probably said, "You have the wrong person. That's not what I'm going to do." And I think we're still exploring, right? And I think that's the exciting thing about career exploration is that it's a journey and a lifelong journey of reinventing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of things were you thinking in high school? Did you know you'd want to go to college? Was that still even up in the air for you at that age?
Yes, I would say that I was a part of that career track where college was definitely in my sights. I was also very involved in music. I was in a lot of different musical ensembles, and I thought about journalism. So, I lived in Miami, Florida for part of my high school career, and then also in Chicago for my senior year. I lived in Chicago, and there was one. Individual, Joan Esposito, who was a reporter for NBC in Chicago. And so, I kind of thought I could maybe be, the next Joan Esposito. So with my Italian maiden last name, I thought that could be a goal or do like arts reporting, because that was a burgeoning career, I'm sure. But it just sounded fun to me. I really liked the arts. But then I ended up getting a scholarship going to Indiana University. I remember walking with my dad at the time, and there was like some soprano belting some amazing aria, and I looked at him like with fear, like, oh, I don't know if that's me. He goes, that must be a grad student. And so you learned that there's talent and practice and a lot of dedication, a lot of like being alone in a music room practicing that goes into being a music major. I started taking more journalism communication classes, less music classes. I still was in the choir all 4 years, but that was the fun part that I really liked to do. And so I just sort of fell into more of a journalism communications degree than a music major. But that was always my path. I always thought I would go to college and then kind of see where it led. I think, I didn't have the pressure of maybe some students feel these days, though, of like, I need to figure out exactly what I want to do. And I hope I can maybe release some of that because that zigzag career path, I think, also is out there, and you're developing these transferable, durable skills along the way.
Yeah, I think that's been the best part of career chats, honestly, Dana, is that people are realizing it's not a straight line. So if we can relieve that stress, like you said, that's a great goal here today. So you're in college, you already realized music. Oh, that's pretty competitive. Not sure I want to do that kind of level, but journalism you like. So that's your degree.
My
And
degree from Indiana University is a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism with a double major in communications. And I did two internships with NBC affiliates, one in Chicago, actually, which was super fun because who doesn't want to be downtown Chicago for a summer? Even though I'm sure I was losing money at the time, because at that time, maybe still today, it was an unpaid internship. So I worked at Giardello's Pizza and other like jobs to cover my costs that summer. I think I had 3 jobs that summer. And then I also worked paid position in Terre Haute, Indiana for the NBC affiliate there, which is a lot smaller market than Grand Rapids, Michigan. Grand Rapids is actually a fairly large competitive market, actually. And I realized the competition to even get to a market like Grand Rapids. I know we all think, oh, Grand Rapids, not that big, or whatever you might think, but it is actually in that market. And I would have to move around a heck of a lot. And so that's also part of a career exploration is you have to know all the little ins and outs of a career, and are you really passionate enough to do that? I do know people who were, but I realized I don't know if I am. And I don't know if I want to do that because I really like working one-on-one with students, and I really like, or people, not just students, but I really like working one-on-one with individuals, and you're a little more detached as a journalist. I mean, it's a little bit more, you're reporting it and you're not seeing the same individuals day in and day out building those relationships.
But I
So
love that. I
yeah.
love that you're showing that the internship, again, you're able to start to clarify your own values
Mhm.
of, is this where I want my career to go? And so again, did you have
Yeah.
to do that as part of your programming, or did you choose to do internships? Help young people who are watching this understand why it's important to do an internship.
So yeah, I had experiential learning in my blood even from then. I knew the value of learning by doing, and there wasn't in my journalism program per se a required internship, but it was highly suggested to do that. So even back then, it was a suggestion of getting out there, trying things. Do you want to do magazine writing? Do you want to do broadcast journalism? Do you want to do advertising, public relations? Do you want to do development, which is like fundraising? I mean, there's a lot of different, a communications degree, a journalism degree. One of the strengths, I teach a communication theory class at my current institution as well. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in class is that it's this great degree and it's also the scary degree because you can, I mean, communication is everything. Everything involves communication. So when someone says, what are you going to do with that major? I mean, there's so many things you can do with that degree. And there's not like a linear track like a nursing degree or an engineering degree where you're like, I'm going to nursing school. And so it takes a little bit more on your end to get out there and explore all the different pathways.
Yeah, and I love that you were interested and you had this woman in Chicago on air that you were kind of aspiring to. Did you find your own internships? Did you network? Like, because those are kind of pretty cool internships you got to do. So how did you even land that? Help young people understand, like, how do you even dig that kind of thing up?
So, one of the things that I always encourage students to do is say yes. I, my junior to senior year, I didn't have an internship. I looked everywhere. I interned at Burson Marsala, which is a PR agency, Leo Burnett, which is a advertising agency, so many other places. Broadcast journalism. I mean, I applied. I didn't land anything. So I left my junior year, went back home, and I was like, I guess I'm going to work for Manpower and my Brookstone job, and I guess that's what I'm going to do. And so and this is where, and it's not, I talk about social capital a lot of times, and it's not like, oh, who your family knows. It's who do you know that knows somebody else? I remember I did a presentation in Mrs. Kiger's class at Forest Hills Northern, and she has the whole career course in her English class. And one of the students was really struggling to talk to somebody, and one of the other students was like, "Oh, my dad is this." So like asking everybody is so important, even if you don't think, asking the person you get coffee from, or asking, your teachers. So randomly, like a neighbor was like, hey, there is this NBC pool. Because back then, well, still today, the journalists who travel with the president there's a pool and they go to different places. And then sometimes they need gophers, or what I would say is like a young person to just go and get coffee and make copies or whatever they need, like something. And they were like, hey, there's this, do you want to do that? And I was like, it was just a day. And I'll date myself. It was like President Clinton. So there you go. I'm old. And so, Bill Clinton was coming to speak and they needed a college student to do this. And I was like, sure, I'll go do this. So I drove myself over there. And I was sitting next to, while he was speaking, this very distinguished man who was in a suit, and I didn't know him because I didn't know all the journalists in the Chicago market. I mean, how would I do that? How would I know that? But I started talking to him, and I just was being myself. I had my elevator pitch, sorta, kinda. I didn't know it was called an elevator pitch at the time, but I had it. My name is Dana. I'm a current journalism major at Indiana University. I am, looking for an internship this summer in journalism, and I was excited to be, somebody asked me if I could come help, and I was excited for the opportunity. Well, it turned out his name is Derek Blakely, and he was an NBC reporter, and he was like, actually, I need an intern this summer. Why don't you send me your resume? And I'm like, okay. So I sent him my resume and I interned for him over the summer. And
I
and that
love it.
and that, I mean, sometimes things happen that you don't even realize where that is going to lead you. You just sort of open a door and it could take you someplace very cool and interesting.
I love that, love that, love that. There's actually a theory of happenstance, a theory of career
Yes,
happenstance.
yes,
So
John
if anyone's
Crumble.
interested, yeah,
Yeah.
read up on that because
Mhm.
it's how it works, young people. We don't have to have it all planned out. It's you saying yes. And I love that, Dina.
That's one of
So
my
here you,
favorite theories, by the way.
yes,
Yeah,
because it's true. We meet so
yeah,
many people. It's being in the right place, right time, saying yes, saying yes, saying yes. So that's great. So
yes,
you have
yes,
this internship, you're starting to kind of fine tune what you want to do. So
yeah.
what was your first big girl job then out of college?
So I didn't decide to work in higher ed. I sort of, going back to my statement about, I realized I don't know if I have the grit to be in broadcast journalism, and to do all of that, like moving around. And I was involved on campus, and this is my other plug. Wherever you go, get involved, join an organization, do something, find something that you're interested in and be involved, because I had a really good advisor, and I kind of went to dean. It was the dean of students at Indiana University. I went. He was the advisor for the student organization I was a part of, and I went to him and I was like, I don't know what to do now because I've had two internships in broadcast journalism, and now I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? I talked to my faculty advisor, which is also an important person to really like talk to. You have to go talk to them. They're not going to go knock on your door, and they're not going to like say, how can I help you? But if you go talk to them, well, my faculty advisor was like, I've always saw you in education. And I'm like, well, thanks for telling me this now. I'm a senior. Like, why wouldn't you tell me this? So I went to the dean of students, and I was sitting there talking with him, and I was like, I don't know if I have the 2 years of extra college money to like get a teaching degree. And I don't know if I want to be in a classroom. And he's like, why don't you do this? He's like, you're really good at like the student organization stuff. You did a great job with the activities. And it was I helped with a lot of like student activities at the time on campus. And I said to him, I was like, that's a job? Like you have this is a career track? He goes, yeah. And it is, there's many paths to get there, right? But one, you could do school, like you could do a master's of education, master's of communication. I did a master's in higher education with a counseling tract, and I got an assistantship. So I applied to different programs, and I got into Loyola University in Chicago, and I worked in the residence halls. So I say anybody, if you get to be a resident assistant or work in a residence hall, you learn a lot by living with people and working with people. So I was a resident director at Loyola University in Chicago, and I um, did my master's at there. And that's kind of how I ended up in the field that I'm in today, because I did a lot of different things while I was there, one of which was like helping to teach a career course. And I worked in residence life, but I tried to get involved in other facets of higher ed and learn about other facets of higher ed. And that led me to Grand Rapids, where I worked in as the director of student activities for a while, academic advising for a while, and now career, and then career. And all the while, how I got to where I wanted to go was, saying I could teach that career course or I could do that. And, when Western Michigan University started their doctorate in educational leadership, and they had a Grand Rapids, they still have a Grand Rapids campus. I started taking classes towards that degree because I wanted to make a bigger impact in how students learn and prepare for their careers, and also just to get a little bit more insight into like the world of higher education from an administrative point of view. I just like to
And
learn.
I get, yeah, and I want to just point out to the young people, as you were hearing her, she's gave you such good advice that she's the one that was reaching out to her advisors. She wasn't reaching out to professors. She was seeking opportunities. And so again, this isn't going to come to you, just like she said. So I love hearing how this started to evolve for you and that you got to have an opportunity to work with people as an RA. So as you came to Grand Rapids, so the student services, this field of higher ed, student services, this assistant directorship you have now, why don't you help us understand what a typical day might be like for you? And then end up sharing the most favorite part and the least favorite part for us.
Sure. I love it. And there's so many areas of higher ed, and there's a whole facet. You have the people in the classroom, but there's a whole facet of us who work in higher education to support a student's journey. So the Center for Experiential Learning at my institution is a new center. And it really is kind of a hub that connects a lot of other areas. So you think, you have a career center, you might have a center for study away and abroad, you might have a center for academic support, you might have a center for academic research, you might have all these other like different, career enhanced sort of things. And so I help connect students with internships, community-based projects, working with faculty who might want to integrate that into their curriculum, and then other sort of career experiences. So basically, I meet one-on-one with students in a typical day. I might have a student appointment or two. I might have a appointment with a employer partner in the area. I also might like prep for things, so meetings, of course. Um, my favorite part of my job is helping students to figure out what they want to do before they graduate, making sure they also get paid or earn credit for doing it. So I do love that part of my job. And then, of course, there's always parts that you don't really love, but you really need to do, like budgets and spreadsheets. And yeah, other people are like, "Ooh, that sounds so fun." But that's not my bend. But those are also probably essential parts of your job as well.
I'd be curious, looking back to your young self who was thinking journalism and now, what are the pieces that you see connecting now that you have a little 2020 vision backwards that you're like, oh, that totally makes sense that these pieces are part of my job?
Sure. I think curiosity, I think being a curious individual, relationship building. I mean, that's kind of part of my like maybe natural tendency, communication. I mean, I use it constantly, whether it's writing or talking or you name it. And then also probably I even when I was in high school, I was probably a multitasker, or not that I hear multitasking isn't great. Like people remind me of that all the time. But I was naturally like an organized multitasker person, always smiling through it. Like even if you ask my best friend from high school, she would say that. So I think those are the kind of natural like qualities that are maybe innate traits that, my sister is a nurse practitioner, probably was in a higher level math class her freshman year of high school than I was my junior year of high school. And I mean, that's fine. She's a lot smarter than me, like in that sense. So, but we came with different skill sets and different like, paths. So,
Exactly. And I think that's important because there are people who can multitask and handle a lot of input and chaos when you're doing multiple events like you're probably doing and lots of different things. Not everyone can do that. So it is a strength for sure.
right.
When you think about the young people you've impacted over these last few years specifically, do you have a story that you're like, oh, this is why I love the work I do?
Oh, so when I was at, I mean, there's so many, but when I was at Aquinas College, which was another institution that I was at, we had a student worker that came to us, so freshman year, and this young man, first generation college student, with a sports scholarship. We hired him as one of our student workers, and so it was like from day one it was everything like, yeah, how do you dress appropriately when you're at the front desk, and how do you handle yourself in these professional settings, and helping through all of that, to junior year working with the West Michigan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, their career application where they help students find internships. And I was like, I think you should apply to this, and helping him write that cover letter and resume. And he ended up getting an internship actually with a major company in this area, and really maturing from that internship experience, and now lives in California. And as a full-time, job for that same company. And it all stems from, like hiring that freshman student, who didn't have like that office experience, working through like how to, training, how that all works and how it all kind of fits in, to now like seeing him on social media doing all of these like amazing things. Those are the kind of things that make me happy for what I do.
Well, it's so tangible. I mean, you're literally changing people's lives, giving them the skill sets and coaching them through these things, which will have fruit at the other end. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. You had mentioned that your department is kind of a hub. It connects to different things like those career centers and the academic support and the academic research. I think it's so great for young people to hear that those are full-time jobs too.
Mhm.
So if a student's thinking, I like this idea of working in higher ed, helping young people, change their lives. You went through a journalism communications degree. Is there a path, if you were to go back, that you would do differently? Or is there a way that you would recommend to young people as far as next steps, what kind of undergrad they might consider, or even by that master's level? What are you looking for when you hire in your department?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are people in my field that are all different backgrounds and majors. The director of the Center for Experiential Learning is chemistry professor. We have a business major, I'm a communications major. We have former teachers who are now working. So, psychology, communication, really every type of degree can go into the work that I do. And as I alluded to before, the master's or the pathway, I mean, the typical pathway would be the College Student Affairs Administration degree. But that being said, like a social work master's or communications master's or counseling master's were all very similar, or even like actually the masters of management. I, say to everybody that my every day is different, like meeting with employers, mentoring students, creating programs, collaborating with faculty or other like staff. So you could kind of say that my job is 30% helping people, 30% project management, sometimes some caffeine intake, right? 10% remembering to breathe, or like, okay, that we got this, so it's a whole bunch of different things that could lead to this role.
And I think young people, if you hear that that takes the pressure off what you're choosing for an undergrad, because
Yeah.
for many people, me included, our undergrads are very malleable and can take you many places. So please, even for people who want to be doctors, their undergrad, it doesn't matter. You might have some prerequisites you have to do, but it just takes the pressure off. I hope that that's what they're hearing out of what you just shared.
And I hope so too, because so one of my friends who was also a music major at Indiana University, she was a music major, political science minor, went to law school and is now a lawyer, but she was a music major and then went to law school. And then I have a friend who was an economics major who then went to medical school. I mean, did all the prereqs. You have to do those to get into medical school, but literally didn't major in biochemistry, which is like, oh, I have to major in that. No, was a economics major and then is now a radiologist. So you really do, and it really you have to talk to people though to make sure you're following what you need to get to that next step.
Yeah, so true. Love that. Um, you have been an amazing role model today. You've given so much great career advice. With our remaining time, I'd love for you to share kind of that final word of wisdom, Dana, as young people are just figuring out where am I taking this? I have this teacher's heart, maybe. I'm not sure I want to be in a classroom, or, they like the idea of planning events already as young people. What would you like them to know?
I think one of my biggest takeaways is to say yes to opportunities, even if they scare you a little bit, and to try jobs, volunteer, intern. This shadowing opportunity is great, but I'd also encourage you to like go out in person and shadow individuals too, because every experience teaches you something. So remember, you also don't have to have it figured out at 16, 17, because heck, most adults are using Chat GPT to like, what should I do with the rest of my life? I mean, we're all still wondering those questions.
My final thing is I have about a minute. Tell us a perk of working at higher institution. Don't you get like access to some free tuition or a free class? Because every industry kind of has some perks. Is there something that you'd want them to know about working for a university? Do your kids get to go for free or half off? Like what's a perk of higher ed?
Well, can I shout out? I love my institution. I work at
Sure.
Green Valley State University, so go
Yes.
Lakers.
Me,
And
I'm a Laker for a
woohoo!
lifetime.
Yay. And I mean, we have a lot of great institutions in West Michigan, but I really love working at Grand Valley. And we do have a lot of work supports. I mean, everything, and I know this doesn't sound like sexy, but we have Thrive at Grand Valley. So we have counseling or like wellness programs that we can do that are all sort of part of our package as a benefits package. We have access to the YMCA or to the health facilities on campus. We do get some tuition remission. It's not a totally free, but yes, it is a big help. And we can take classes as well. So we can take classes pretty much for free, but like our dependents can also attend the institution, which is kind of a big perk. And we don't have as much breaks as maybe being a K-12 teacher, but we do have actually a lot of like holiday and vacations. We have the whole winter break off, which is kind of nice. So there are some perks. Plus the perk of just being on a college campus, which is really fun, and getting to go to like a few, Laker football games. So
Absolutely. I appreciate you shouting that out, because that's something for young people to consider, of some of those perks. I worked in hospitality. We got to stay at Hilton's for free, right? I mean, and those are a low cost. So just keep that in mind, young people. What are the perks? So thank you,
yep.
Dana, for being here today. You're a great role model, and I just appreciate you today.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you, Krista. It was great. Yeah.
Awesome.